All right. So today we have a special guest. I want to kind of do a formal introduction, do a little something different. I don't really number or have any specific titles or anything for my shows. I don't want to keep people in the idea that they're missing something, so I don't number anything. I don't know why I don't. Maybe it's easier to keep up with. But I wanted to introduce and give the best introduction I possibly can for this guest and the topics that we're going to talk about. So today I have Penelope Camarata. I hope I actually said that one perfectly fine. I've been practicing. I've been rehearsing that, making sure that I'm saying that right. I didn't butcher that, did I? I didn't butcher
You
that at
you
all.
did perfect.
Okay. So Penelope is a therapeutic trauma life coach for first responders, veterans, both active and retired, and deals with frontline workers on a national scale. And this that sounds like very epic. That is an amazing title, and there's a lot of things. I've been doing a little bit of research, a little bit of homework on you. I probably spied on your LinkedIn a little bit, and I just want to make sure that we're covering all the bases because you have like a wide variety of knowledge, and your story is very epic, and we'll touch bases into that. I just wanted to like let people know some of the things that you do, some of the things that you've got going on. I think it's very admirable dealing with first responders and EMS services, and dealing with that on their mental health level. So if you don't mind, which one of the questions I want to talk to you about is the why behind the internal consequences.
Right. There's a lot. I've been in EMS for 7 years, and I also come from a background, family background of a family member being in the military. A family member was an EMT before he went into the sheriff's department. My mom was a type 1 brittle diabetic. So I grew up with EMTs basically in my house all hours of the day and night in whatever situation. I got to kind of understand when I got into this. I understood why my uncle went from EMT to sheriff's department suddenly because he loved being in EMS, and my my mom had been in a critical medical emergency where they had to life flight her from a small town in rural America to Portland, Oregon, to Oregon Health Sciences University because she literally had a severe diabetic emergency, and he had to go. So he had to put his personal relationship with being her brother off to the side and deal with it professionally and keep it together. And it impacted him a lot to where he left EMS shortly after that and went to the sheriff's department. And was even though he was he was technically the third youngest out of four kids, my mom was the baby. He felt very overprotective of her from that time on. Emergency really shook him up, and I never understood why he was always so protective of her. And being a mom who also had a child who became type 1 diabetic when she was 14, it kind of hit home that family dynamic part of seeing it from a different side, a different view of. I got to see it as a child and how EMS responded. I got to see it as a mom who dealt with it on a daily basis and had to take my child to the emergency room quite often for her emergencies. It kind of seemed to fall into line that when I came to Philadelphia, I was actually going to go into law enforcement, but I ended up going into the EMS, and actually loved it. It actually seems I seem to be more comfortable in it. It comes naturally to me, and when I had to go through my own personal trauma of watching and hearing about a police lieutenant, who was a good friend of mine from the Philadelphia Police Department, take his own life. That hit me personally, and I had to put it off to the side because when I found out about it was literally 2 days before I took my state test to pass my EMT licensure class. So I had to put that on the shelf and focus on my professional to get my certification to be an EMT. And then it kind of just stuck back there for a while. And it started to actually affect me about 3 years later when I went into a huge depression. And I was struggling trying to find someone to talk to about what I was feeling, what I was going through, the anger I was going through, and the actual grieving. And there was nobody there. You know, people always have a list of counselors, therapists. You know, you can always call a crisis line and you can get a number to a counselor, therapist, but none of them had ever dealt with first responders before. We have a different mindset and a thought process than the JQ public. We overanalyze things. We have such a professional mind that we pick things apart. We sometimes overthink things. We compartmentalize, and trying to get us out of our own head mentally to actually talk about something is very difficult to do. But once we want to talk, we're like, okay, let's just talk about this. But getting us to that point is the biggest challenge. I ended up finding just alternative methods that slowly helped me get through things. At first, I didn't think they were helping. I thought, oh my God, it's a waste of time. I just wasted a bunch of money on this and it's not working, yada, yada, yada. And then I started to feel better though, because I was actually putting things into practice that I had learned without realizing it, that, oh, you know what, I can actually get up in the morning and not feel like I'm drowning or want to crawl, just hide away. I want to, be more social. I want to do more things, and it's a slow process. But once I got back into the positive parts of everything, I knew what I wanted to do. I wanted to actually start telling people about this. And I know that, working with a lot of EMS and firefighters, we all have our own struggles. And so that's who I wanted to focus on, because we're the ones out there dealing with the general public but who's there bad day type of thing, and have that same understanding of what we're going through and what we hide and what we struggle with. And so that's how my nonprofit actually got started.
It's very interesting that you say that, and thinking about it. I mean, I'm a very much a comic book person as well, and there's a comic book of like Who Watches the Watchmen, and this is kind of what you're talking about, like who heals the healers, and in that situation, it's like how do you imagine or going into a situation where you have to think about scalability, and I don't just mean on a business sense, I mean on a responsibility sense. You're involved in the situation on the front line of, the wrong decision could, impact someone's life, but not just that person's life, but their family's lives, their relatives' lives, how they exist for the rest of their life. And then knowing that you're responsible for making that decision and you carrying it with you from one person to the next, to so on and so forth. It's a very interesting dynamic, and I think you're right, we don't necessarily take that into accountability, the different avenues and the people and the burdens that they have to live with. I have a few friends in law enforcement. I have a few friends in the military. My sister's in the military. I have a few friends that are in the medical field, and to realize that their community is so closed and closed off. Now that I'm hearing you and seeing how they live their lives, because they don't really get to interact with other people or a lot of things a lot. It's definitely eye-opening to think about their perspective and how mentally tough they have to be, or closed off or resolved they have to be. The only relative experience that I've had was, in my youthful years, I was an Eagle Scout and, did volunteer hours at the hospital, wheeling people out, on the wheelchairs when they were leaving or admitting them in when they were, coming in, things of that nature. And just that took a mental toll on me,
Mm-hmm.
realizing not only my blessings but the burdens and people that they had in their lives, and it just made me become more self-aware. So I can't imagine being as hyper tuned involved in a situation that you are. And I commend you for it. It's amazing to try to get these different perspectives from people. Which leads me to my second question, right? And usually we only ask one, but this is a special occasion. So it leads me to my special second question here is, how do you get your clients and the people to open up and talk about the issues? In that type of situation, because it's so high turnover, high stakes, and high risk, and you know, they kind of just roll from one thing to the next, and a lot of times they don't get a chance to decompress. So how do you get them to open up about that?
Mainly, I expose myself. One thing about our veterans is a lot of their mindset is no one knows what we've gone through, and they're right on that part. But they also have a trust issue. That is because first of all, they deal with people on their worst day and they lie. Victims, people will lie about why they were speeding, about how they got into an accident, how they got injured, and let me tell you, there have been some creative stories that have raised a few eyebrows. And so you have to learn how to filter out those lies and from your patients and your whoever you're giving a ticket to. And then what happens is that we become closed off because we have a hard time telling the truth too. Because if we told the truth, what was really going on, people would either run the other way or have us committed. I mean, it's that plain and simple because they can't understand or fathom what we see or hear. And we can hear the most crazy thing out there, and it's like it's almost too crazy not to be true, but that's not the mindset. And we have this distrust of other people because secrets always have a way of getting out. People love to gossip. Social media has been the biggest thing nowadays. Of everybody, instead of using it to actually socialize, has turned into a gossip monger of social media. And it's venting. It's lambasting people. It's telling everybody your feelings to your friends, but unfortunately they post, it's open, it's public, and now everybody knows. And so you become very protective about your private life and how you don't want people to interfere or to get into your head. And so my way is by basically exposing myself on what I went and how I resolved it, and it gives that the facts that, oh, she knows what I've gone through, she knows what I'm thinking, how did she do that? And it has to do with empathy. It has to do with the fact that I've been in their shoes, even though I'm not on the ambulance anymore. Now I'm in where, and let me tell you, those guys are messed up. A lot of construction workers or veterans, they get out of the military. They went through a lot of them have been construction in the military where they were engineers and stuff, and they come out and that's all they know. And to get back into that feeling of being in society and being a normal person, they work a construction job. They work what they know, and a lot of them are construction guys or they're mechanics. They're engineers that know how to design things and keep it safe. There's more veterans out in that type of a field besides first. responder than any other industry out there, and they're also the most dangerous. For some reason, the first responders tend to go to the dangerous job. I think that's where they it's something they can relate to because that's what they've lived with a lot of their years. A lot must leave. Some will go 2, 3 tours, and then when they get out, they need that same level of intensity, basically to function. And it's a mental mindset. What I do is the way I process things. I listen to people when they talk. I encourage my clients to talk to me because when I get them to talk, they start to open up. And when you allow someone to open up and talk about what's going on in their life or what's troubling them without any judgments, preconceived notions, having a poker face, that trust is built because they know that they're not going to get sanctioned for anything. They know they're not going to get scrutinized. And then once they finally get to the root of the problem, and as soon as they do, it's an easy fix. But getting them to that comfort level of finding the root of the problem, and if they're willing to get to the root of the problem, and not, it's almost a set guarantee. It has to do something with their younger years. What we do as a youngster, what we hear, what we experience, shapes and determines our lives as we get older and when we become adults, including whether it's even educational, what we're going to do in college, if we're going to go to college. And it shapes how we make those choices and then how we feel about it afterwards. Being coerced, if your parent said you're gonna be a drafter when you cannot stand drafting, and your first love is like taking that into consideration, you kind of have 2 choices. You either choose to follow what your parents want you to be, or you stand up and you say, no, I'm not going to do what I love because I know I can flourish in it. And a lot of these young people that have had hard childhoods tend to go into military. Unfortunately, when they go into the military when they're at such a young age, and granted 18 is not that young, but to me it's young, and they're not fully mentally developed yet. A lot of them are doing it to escape bad families, or that they're trust fund babies and they don't want to do the family dynamics, and they go into the military against their parents' wishes. It's an act of defiance, it's an act of escape, and then they end up going through a military tour, and then now you have even more issues because wherever you go in the military, you're going to see something that's not pleasant. The military is not for peaceful times, it's for times of disagreement and war. And the way our past history has been, the past 50 years, we haven't had an easy time of anything overseas. We've always had to go overseas. Very few people have actually stayed stateside their entire tour, and even then they feel the impact because their base is affected, and it trickles down, even from the highest commanding officer down to the lowest private. You got some sort of sludge sliding downhill, and it's going to affect everybody. Morale is one of the key points that affect everybody, and they've actually had studies shown that even people on base or people that are about to be deployed overseas go through like a cognitive behavior therapy program that's like 3 days, a kind of a crash course to get them into the right mental capacity to actually be able to be deployed successfully. That they still have a handful of good. of good habits, good behavior, of something positive that they say, okay, I can use these skills now, or when I'm overseas to help me get through this crap. That is their toughest thing is, how do I deal with it? How do I get through it without losing my mind? And it's a tough call.
And with all of that in mind and your experiences of pulling everything, like knowing that about all these different, clients and their backgrounds, and, it's a lot of that can just go, sideways and take a life of its own. Um, how how do you not only, well, I guess, how do you manage that? But I want to really ask the question is, knowing all of that, what keeps you motivated not only to continue to do this, but for others as well? What keeps you motivated? Is there a specific moment that, turns your story, or definitively, for me, I have, a story of my greatest failure. And it's, it was like an epic fail that turned my life into how I think and changed, my perception of not only my surroundings, but the things that were happening. I listened to a lot of things that people don't say in order to get the narrative or get the story that I need. And so what keeps you motivated? What is that? What is that specific point?
On WordPress, I actually started an art journey, journaling of the tattoos on my left arm. When my took its own life, it hit me. When it hit me, that 3 years later, I was in such a deep depression that I thought about ending my own life. And I really, really struggled with functioning. And I already had a tattoo on my lower back before I even came. And it hit me that I had started doing a creative journaling program, and it didn't quite work. I bombed it. You could say I totally quit it in the middle of it because it was causing too much trauma from my past, from my present, and I was losing my crap. I was totally losing it. And I started getting tattoos of one of them is a teardrop with the thin blue line down the vertical line of it with his end of watch date. And I actually went through about 6 months of grieving because I was looking at that every day. And it was, and every time I got a new tattoo, I literally had to go through a new grieving process because I wasn't done. I was like at the next phase of that grief process. And each new tattoo, I guess, sparked a different phase of that grieving process. What is it, the 5 steps of grieving? There's 5 steps or something. Right. And literally I have 1, 2, 3, I have 4. I have a rosary wrapped around my wrist, with charms hanging down on the back of my hand of the Star of Life, my friend's badge number in a badge charm, and the Maltese cross for the fire department with the number 343 in it. And the time that I got the Maltese cross was the 17th anniversary of the Twin Towers being bombed, and 343 when I first made that went in. And that was significant to me, and it was number 17 because my friend took his life on my youngest daughter's 17th birthday. So numbers were coinciding. Timing was coinciding. So I literally had to go through the grief over again. Maltese cross, a feather with the semicolon on the bottom of it, with the word underneath it that says live. Most of my tattoos ideas I've gotten off of Pinterest, and I had seen the feather in its faith. And at that time, I really wasn't high on my faith. But I knew that I needed to live. And so I had live written underneath instead of faith. And that got me through the toughest part of it. That's when I know that I hit rock bottom. There's on at the gate about to go down when I had to sit down and I literally stared at that tattoo and I wrote it and the significance of it and why I have it. And once journaling and the art therapy, it actually along the processing of this is how I. Anybody reads this, they're gonna understand it. But getting it out is the most important part because it having it bottled up inside of you is the toughest part. The way a person is keeping it inside of them so long, because you end up basically self-destructing from the inside out. And so I use the art therapy and the blogging to get through getting that message across, and then it made an impact because a lot of first responders noticed my tattoos and they commented about it, and then I told them my story about what inspired them, and they're like, oh, and then ironically every cop officer that had that badge number, and so we would kind of commiserate about the good times with him. So that was a good healing process. That's something. That's really something that first responders and veterans need, is that something good in their careers, their choices, in anything, or where it's getting that accountability. I guess part of that is not necessarily permission. It's more of an acceptance of take me as I am.
Right. And you are echoing so many thoughts that I've had in personal experiences, and that I thought I was alone in at the time I was thinking them. So you're echoing those so well, and doing a great job of grounding that information. I think it's amazing, and it's amazing work that you're doing. Um, if I can help you in any kind of way, like whatever it is, I definitely applaud what you're doing and think it's amazing. Um, so for those that are out there, I mean, I'm thinking about my sister right now who is going into the medical field, and my daughter who's going into the medical field right now. I'm thinking like it's just amazing, and it's really a blessing, not only of how I got, or you got in touch with me and then we figured this thing out. I think it's just an amazing opportunity. You know, I don't I
It's
never
amazing how
predict the
things fall
situation.
into place at the right time when they're meant to be.
Right,
That's where that
it's
faith comes in, that spirituality. No matter what your beliefs are, if you don't have all four of those, which is emotional, physical, and spiritual in alignment, or even close to being in alignment, you're missing out on a lot of things that can help you process, move forward, and have also give you closure on things that are causing that grief and that hardship.
it's I try my best to, understand that sometimes things don't happen to me; they happen for me, for other
Right.
people. So sometimes
Exactly.
I just have to kind of like take that moment and say, okay, well, this is who I am now, and this is the message that needs to be. And so, besides that, I don't want to talk about me. I want to let the people know that, please, if you have any links or anything that you want where people can find you, not only message you, get in touch with you, understand your programs, do anything like that, please, this is that time I want you to plug all of that. Please do.
Well, I'm on pretty much every social media platform. I do have a professional page on LinkedIn for internal consciousness. I am on Instagram, TikTok, um, Facebook. I have two groups actually on Facebook, which is Fitness and EMS Health Fitness. That one focuses on basically anything nutritional, Ayurvedic nutrition, which I'm getting a certificate in. any kind of fitness program. If anybody has any questions for like natural or homeopathic issues, instead of, I know a lot of people want to get away from the medications because we have to be drug tested so often. We sometimes it's better to go natural versus being hooked on a bunch of narcotics and opiates that I really think would be better for a lot of people, especially for the first responders. If anybody has any questions about that, I can be reached on any of those platforms through messaging. I also have an email address of emsfitness323@gmail.com. My Facebook, Internal Consciousness, has my telephone number. They can either call or they can text me if they have any questions or concerns about anything or just want to talk. I do have a webpage. It's https://internal-consciousness.ueniweb.com. And I can also be messaged through there. They can have a look at the different programs that I offer. There are no prices on there because I will work with people on the rates.
Great. So what I'm going to do is, because I believe in this, I'll go ahead. What'd you say?
Oh, I was going to also mention there's a holistic practitioner website called heal.me. And they can find me as one of two practitioners that work with first responders and veterans.
Awesome. What I'm going to do is, when I publish this, I'm just saying this for everybody, I'm going to leave your links that I have. I'm going to leave that in the sections and so they can reach you as well, in case they didn't get that and they didn't hear that. So I'm going to leave all of that there for you. Penelope, it's been awakening. It's almost been like a sunlight of ray of awakening and perspective of different thoughts. And at some point, I do want to have you back on and go into some more details of things, of maybe some personal stories, maybe go and springboard some ideas, or just bounce them around and see what's going on. And that excellent head of yours, I want to see what's going on in there. I definitely want to have you back on and figure out. And I don't know. I don't even know what to ask yet. But I am very intrigued and interested by your responses and your field, if that's okay with you.
Oh, I look forward to it. I just wanted to mention, though, that you can actually put this into your thoughts. I actually am a co-author to a book by Eric Steven Severson. I'm one of the co-authors, and it's called the Life Coach's Toolkit book. And it's basically ready-to-use strategies, principles, and activities from various. And that book should be coming out in around December sometime on Amazon and in Barnes and Noble. So we had to do a strategy and there's a bio in there, each author. And in fact, this week I have to edit my chapter before it gets sent off to the publisher, or they get the final rough draft and then they can send it off to the publisher the next month.
I do want a signed copy. I do. We'll figure that out.
Oh, I will happily send you a signed copy.
We will figure that out. It has to go in my collection. It has to sit up here. I definitely want that.
Okay.
But thank you. I will send you everything, and I'm looking forward to talking to you again soon.
Likewise. It was great talking to you, Leland.
Thank you very much. Have a blessed day.
All right. You too.